This is an audiobook. The Focus Threshold, Reclaiming Deep Work in an Age of Fractured Attention by the Prestige Mind Collections. Introduction. You have been told that your inability to focus is a personal failure, a lack of willpower, a weakness of character in the face of digital temptation. You've been told that if you just tried harder, you could resist the siren song of distraction. But this diagnosis, so common and so widely accepted, is not only wrong, it is a profound and damaging misunderstanding of the world we now inhabit. What if your fractured attention is not a personal flaw, but a systemic consequence? What if it is the predictable, even intended result of an environment deliberately engineered to hijack your most valuable asset, your cognitive sovereignty? We are living in the age of the great fracture, an era where our attention is not merely diverted, but actively harvested, fragmented, and sold to the highest bidder. The feeling of being scattered is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that the system is working as designed. The thesis of this audiobook is simple, yet radical. Deep, sustained focus is not a skill you have miraculously lost, but a state you must learn how to re-enter. It is not a battle of willpower to be won, but an environment, both internal and external, that you must consciously architect. It is a threshold you must learn how to cross, intentionally and on your own terms. This is my pact with you. Journey with me through this audiobook, and you will not receive a collection of fleeting life hacks or superficial tips. Instead, you will be given a durable, philosophical, and intensely practical framework for reclaiming your attention as your own. You will be armed with a clear understanding of the forces allied against your focus, and you will be equipped with the timeless tools required to systematically defeat them. By the end of our journey, you will possess the keys to architecting a life of profound concentration, meaningful work, and internal peace. Our journey together will be a 9-chapter exploration, moving from a deep diagnosis of our modern condition to the meticulous preparation of our minds, and finally, to decisive, sustainable action. First, we will diagnose the full extent of the problem. We will explore the age of fractured attention, identifying the 3 great thieves of cognition that plague us, and forensically debunking the pervasive and destructive myth of multitasking. Next, we will architect our solution from the ground up. We will learn to see the mind as a room, a space we can design and control. We will create powerful portals of ritual to move between states of being, and we will forge a mindset dedicated to the profound sanctity of the single task. Finally, we will put our preparation into motion. We will understand the fundamental physics of action and how to overcome inertia. We will master the pacing method to launch ourselves into deep work reliably. And we will cultivate the crucial rhythm of resilience, ensuring that when we fall, we know exactly how to get back up. This is the path to reclaiming the territory of your mind. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Age of Fractured Attention. The philosopher Bertrand Russell once observed that the modern man thinks that everything ought to be done for the sake of something else, and never for its own sake. He wrote those words long before the invention of the Internet. Yet he perfectly captured the spirit of our age. We live for the next notification, the next email, the next update. The present moment is rarely enough. It is merely a stepping stone to a future distraction. This state of being defines our era, an age of relentless, systemic fracturing of our attention. To begin our journey, we must internalize a crucial truth. The struggle to focus is not a personal moral failure, but a design feature of the modern world. The pervasive sense of distraction is not an accident. It is the most profitable business model of the 21st century. Your attention has become a currency, and you are spending it far more freely than you realize. Every time you scroll, click, or react, you are making a transaction. You are trading a piece of your cognitive real estate for a fleeting hit of information or entertainment. The companies that design our digital landscape understand this better than we do. They employ armies of engineers and psychologists to find ever more ingenious ways to capture and hold our gaze, because our sustained attention is the product they sell to advertisers. To truly grasp this, let's journey to Egypt in the mid-20th century. For millennia, life along the Nile was governed by a sacred, predictable rhythm. Every year, the great river would swell and overflow its banks, inundating the surrounding plains. This was not a disaster. It was a blessing. The floodwaters carried millions of tons of rich, black, nutrient-laden silt from the Ethiopian highlands. When the waters receded, they left this gift of the Nile behind, creating an incredibly fertile floodplain that sustained Egyptian civilization for thousands of years. This was the Black Land, the land of Kemet. Then, in the 1960s, came the dream of modernization, the Aswan High Dam. It was an engineering marvel, a symbol of national pride, designed to control the floods and generate massive amounts of hydroelectric power. In these primary goals, it was a resounding success. But its architects failed to anticipate the devastating second-order consequences. The dam stopped the flow of silt. The lifeblood of the land was cut off. Year after year, the soil grew less fertile. The delicate ecosystem of the Nile Delta began to collapse. The sardine fisheries, once abundant, vanished completely. The creators of the dam, in their focus on one metric, power and control, inadvertently starved the very land they sought to empower. This is a powerful, globally resonant metaphor for our current condition. The architects of our digital world, in their stated goal to connect us, have built a dam against the natural, cyclical flow of human attention. This dam has stopped the cognitive silt, the unstructured, quiet, reflective, and even boring time that our minds need to cultivate the fertile ground for deep, creative, and meaningful thought. We are all living downstream from this dam, wondering why our mental soil feels increasingly barren. Recognizing this is the first, most empowering step. It shifts the blame from a perceived lack of personal willpower to a clear-eyed understanding of the environment we inhabit. And this dam, this great machine of distraction, is not some vague, malevolent fog. It is a complex engine with distinct and identifiable parts. To begin the work of dismantling it, we must first inspect its gears. We must meet the thieves who operate this machine in broad daylight, often with our unwitting permission. Chapter 2. The Three Thieves of Cognition. The American poet Mary Oliver gave us a profound directive for a well-lived life. To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work. Yet this essential work is made endlessly difficult by forces that actively seek to steal the very resource it requires. These forces are not abstract. They are specific, identifiable thieves who have learned to exploit the fundamental wiring of our brains. By naming them, we move from being passive victims of their larceny to active observers of their methods. Let us unmask the three great thieves of modern cognition, the siren of novelty, the ghost of productivity, and the assassin of ambiguity. To understand their primary method, we can travel back in time through the mists of mythology, to the epic of Homer's Odyssey. As the hero Odysseus sails home from the Trojan War, he must navigate a perilous stretch of sea, controlled by the Sirens. The Sirens were not fearsome monsters who conquered sailors with brute force. Their weapon was far more insidious, their song. It was a sound so beautiful, so enchanting, that it promised secret knowledge and ultimate pleasure, luring sailors to cast themselves into the sea and drown. Their song was the promise of something new, something better, something more interesting than the tedious reality of rowing. It was the ping of a notification. It was the lure of an infinite scroll. Odysseus, a model of strategic wisdom, knew he could not defeat the Sirens with willpower alone. He knew their call was more powerful than his resolve. So he used a system. He ordered his crew to plug their ears with beeswax so they could not hear the song. Then, because he wished to hear the song himself without succumbing to it, he had his men tie him securely to the mast of the ship, with strict orders not to release him no matter how much he begged. He fought a superior force, not by overpowering it, but by making it impossible for him to surrender. This ancient story perfectly illuminates our modern battle. The first and most powerful thief is that siren of novelty. Our brains are hardwired to crave new information. It's an evolutionary holdover that once helped us survive by noticing a new predator or a new food source. Today, this instinct is exploited to keep us hooked. Every notification, every headline, every new post is a siren song promising a morsel of novelty. The second thief is more subtle. It is the ghost of productivity. This thief doesn't lure you with pleasure, but with a false sense of accomplishment. It's the voice that whispers, "Just quickly check your email," or "Let's organize these files." These are shallow tasks. They feel like work, but they produce little of real value. They are the cognitive equivalent of tidying your desk while your house is on fire. This ghost keeps you busy, but prevents you from being effective, creating the illusion of progress while stealing the time needed for deep work. The third thief is the most cunning of all, the assassin of ambiguity. This thief strikes when you are most vulnerable, when you are facing a large, complex, or important task, and the very next step is unclear. What do you do when you have to write the report? Where do you begin? This ambiguity creates a feeling of discomfort and uncertainty. At that precise moment of vulnerability, the assassin strikes, not with a song or a promise, but with an open door to easy distraction. Suddenly, checking the news or social media feels not just tempting, but like a necessary relief from the mental strain of the ambiguous task. To defend against them, we must follow Odysseus's lead and build a system. It begins with an attention audit. For a single day, act as an observer of your own mind. When you feel the pull of distraction, do not just give in. Pause and name the thief. Is it the siren of novelty, promising a new piece of information? Is it the ghost of productivity, offering a shallow task as a shield? Or is it the assassin of ambiguity, exploiting your uncertainty about what to do next? Simply knowing their names and their methods is the first half of the solution. It is the act of seeing the trap before you step into it. We have now identified the external forces that prey upon us and the internal vulnerabilities they exploit. But there is another, deeper layer to our struggle, a damaging belief that we have not only accepted, but have often celebrated as a necessary skill for modern life. We have been training our own minds to aid and abet these thieves. We call this damaging practice multitasking. Chapter 3. The Myth of Multitasking, How We Train for Distraction. The man who chases two rabbits, warned the ancient sage Confucius, catches neither. This timeless piece of wisdom cuts to the very heart of a core delusion of our age, the myth of multitasking. We have been conditioned to believe that the ability to juggle multiple tasks at once is a sign of efficiency and high performance. The truth is that multitasking, as we generally conceive of it, does not exist in the human brain. What we are actually doing is rapid, inefficient, and neurologically costly task switching. With every switch, from writing a report to checking an email, from analyzing a spreadsheet to replying to a text message, our brain incurs what neuroscientists call a cognitive cost. When you switch from task A to task B, your attention doesn't travel cleanly. A part of it, an attention residue, is left behind, still thinking about the previous task. Then, when you switch back from B to A, you must not only re-engage with the original task, but also actively suppress the lingering thoughts of task B. This constant switching process fragments our focus, increases the likelihood of errors, and elevates our stress levels. In attempting to do everything at once, we are not becoming more efficient. We are simply practicing the skill of being chronically distracted. We are training our brains to prefer shallowness over depth. The definitive proof of this principle on a grand industrial scale can be found at the birth of the modern assembly line. In the early 20th century, when Henry Ford set out to mass-produce the Model T, the conventional wisdom of manufacturing involved small teams of highly skilled craftsmen working together on a single car, performing many different tasks. The process was slow, expensive, and inconsistent. Ford's revolution was to invert this model entirely. His genius was not in asking his workers to do more tasks simultaneously, but the radical opposite. He broke the complex process of building a car down into hundreds of simple, discrete steps. Each worker on the assembly line was assigned one, and only one, repeatable task that they could perform with total, uninterrupted focus. The result was a miracle of production that changed the world. This specialization and profound commitment to single tasking didn't just build cars. It demonstrated a fundamental law of high-quality performance. Monumental output, whether on an assembly line or in our own creative work, is the result of focused, sequential action, not scattered, simultaneous effort. The assembly line proved that the path to doing more is, paradoxically, to do one thing at a time. We have now completed our diagnosis. We can see the fractured world that surrounds us. We know the names of the thieves who patrol it, and we understand the pervasive myth that makes us complicit in our own cognitive downfall. The picture may seem bleak. It may feel as though we are hopelessly outmatched. But a clear and honest diagnosis is the essential prerequisite for any cure. It is now time to stop looking outward at the problem and to begin looking inward, to the meticulous and rewarding work of architecting the solution. This work starts by reimagining the very nature of the mind itself. Chapter 4. The Mind as a Room, the First Principle of Cognitive Architecture. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal, in a moment of profound insight, wrote that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. This statement, written centuries ago, holds the master key to our predicament. The chaos we feel is not just an external phenomenon, it is an internal one. To combat it, we must learn to see the mind not as a chaotic, uncontrollable storm of thoughts and emotions, but as a space, an environment, an inner room whose architecture, lighting, and acoustics we have the power to influence. Before you can produce focused work, you must first design and furnish this room. Take a moment to imagine it now. Is your inner room cluttered with the debris of a dozen unfinished tasks? Is it noisy, with the sounds of social media notifications and news alerts echoing off the walls? Are the doors and windows wide open, allowing any passing distraction to wander in uninvited? Or is it clear, quiet, and sealed? Is there a single comfortable chair, a clean work surface, and one source of light aimed at one specific task? The quality of your work will be a direct reflection of the quality of this inner space. Consider the extraordinary work of one of history's most brilliant and enigmatic minds, the inventor Nikola Tesla. When conceiving of his revolutionary inventions, like the alternating current motor that powers our world today, Tesla's process was unique. He did not immediately rush to a physical workshop filled with wires and tools. He first built the entire device, piece by perfect piece, within the pristine, controlled laboratory of his own consciousness. He would construct a new motor in his mind's eye, and then he would turn it on. He would run this mental prototype for weeks, checking it for wear, looking for imbalances, and observing its performance, all without ever touching a single physical object. His genius was not just in electrical engineering, but in his complete mastery of cognitive architecture. He possessed the profound ability to build and maintain a perfect, uncluttered mental room, a workshop where the laws of physics could be tested in an environment free from all external interference. This metaphor, the mind as a room, is transformative. It shifts our role from being a passive inhabitant of our own mind, buffeted by its changing moods and whims, to becoming its active architect. It gives us agency. It suggests that we can choose the furniture, we can soundproof the walls, and most importantly, we can decide who and what is allowed to enter. But every sacred room, every laboratory, every artist's studio needs a door, and a door is useless without a clear and deliberate understanding of how and when to use it, a ritual for crossing the threshold from the outer world to the inner one. Chapter 5. The Power of the Portal. Rituals for Entering Deep Work. According to the great philosopher Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Excellence, in our case the excellence of focus, is born from the habits and rituals we practice. The transition from our default state of distraction to a state of deep focus is the moment of greatest friction and psychological resistance. It is the point where the pull of inertia is strongest. A startup ritual acts as a portal between these two worlds. It is a short, practice sequence of simple, concrete actions that sends a powerful and unambiguous signal to your brain that the rules of engagement are about to change. It is the Pavlovian bell for deep focus. We can see this principle demonstrated with remarkable clarity in the pre-performance rituals of the world's greatest musicians. A world-class concert cellist, like the legendary Yo-Yo Ma, for example, does not simply walk out from the wings, sit down, and begin to play a Bach cello suite. The performance begins long before the first note is struck. There is an unvarying sequence, the precise way he positions his chair, the specific manner in which he holds the instrument, the methodical process of tuning, the sacred moment of silence and stillness he takes, eyes closed, before the bow touches the strings. These actions are not superstitions. They are neurological triggers, They are a practiced and proven sequence that summons the specific state of mind required for a masterful, transcendent performance. The ritual is the gateway to the art. We too can create such a gateway to our own deep work. We can design a portal ritual, a short, consistent sequence that bridges the gap between our scattered self and our focused self. The power of this ritual lies in its consistency and its physicality. It must be a series of actions, not just intentions. A highly effective portal ritual can be constructed from 3 simple components. First, the separation. This is the act of creating a clear physical boundary between you and the world of distraction. It could be as simple as placing your smartphone in a drawer in another room. The physical act of removal is far more powerful than the mental act of trying to ignore it. Second, the preparation. This involves arranging your immediate workspace for the single task at hand. Close all unnecessary tabs on your computer. Position your notebook and pen. Pour a glass of water. Create an environment of minimalist, single-minded intention. Third, and finally, the inhalation. This is the definitive marker, the moment you cross the threshold. Take a single, slow, deliberate, deep breath. This simple physiological act serves as a powerful anchor, calming the nervous system and signaling a definitive break from what came before. We have now conceived of our inner room. We have designed the sacred portal used to enter it. Now, we must ask the crucial question: what is the work we are to do once we are inside? The entire purpose of this carefully constructed sanctuary is to perform a special kind of work, to engage with a task in a way that is impossible in the outside world. To do so requires understanding and honoring the single most fundamental rule of this sacred space. Chapter 6. The Sanctity of the Single Task. The main thing, taught the influential educator Stephen Covey, is to keep the main thing the main thing. This elegantly simple phrase contains a universe of wisdom. Inside the mental sanctuary you have so carefully constructed, there is only one governing law: one task at a time. This is not merely a strategy for improving your efficiency. It is a profound act of reverence. By giving a single object of your attention, be it a paragraph of prose, a line of code, or a complex problem, the full, undivided weight of your consciousness, you elevate its importance. You deepen your relationship with it. This practice, performed consistently over time, literally rewires the neural circuits of the brain, strengthening your capacity for deep focus and weakening the reflexive pull of distraction. The power of this principle is embodied in the ancient and revered craft of the master Japanese swordsmith. The forging of a katana is a process of immense, almost spiritual, singular focus. The smith begins with a block of raw steel, the tamahagane. He heats it, hammers it flat, scores it, and folds it over onto itself. He repeats this process over and over again, heating, hammering, folding, thousands of times. Each fold, each strike of the hammer, must be perfect, executed with complete and total attention. If his mind were to wander at a crucial moment, if he were to try and manage the temperature of the forge and fold the steel at the very same instant, a fatal imperfection could be introduced, compromising the integrity of the entire blade. The legendary strength, sharpness, and beauty of the finished sword is a direct and necessary result of the perfection of the smith's single-pointed, unwavering focus. He is not just making a sword. He is pouring his entire consciousness into steel. This is the mindset we must bring to our own most important work. We must treat our primary task with the same sanctity as the swordsmith treats his steel. When you are inside your sanctuary, you are a unitasker. There is no just checking email. There is no quick look at the news. There is only the task. This commitment can be terrifying at first. Our distraction-addled brains will protest. They will crave the familiar stimulation of novelty. But by gently and persistently returning our focus to the single task, we perform an act of cognitive rebellion. We declare that we, not the algorithms of distraction, are in control of what we value. The philosophy is now complete. We have the design for the room, we have the ritual for the portal, and we have the single sacred rule we must follow inside. We are fully prepared, but as any engineer or artist knows, there is a vast chasm between a perfect blueprint and a finished structure. That chasm is filled by the messy, difficult, and often frustrating physics of action. We must now learn the techniques required to reliably overcome the powerful force of inertia. Chapter 7. The Physics of Action, Overcoming Cognitive Inertia. Sir Isaac Newton, in his first law of motion, gave us a principle that perfectly describes the universe. An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion, unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. This is not just a law of the physical world, governing planets and billiard balls. It is, with uncanny accuracy, a law of the mind. Procrastination and distraction are not, at their root, moral failings. They are a natural law of cognitive inertia. A brain at rest, passively drifting through social media feeds or browse websites, tends to stay at rest. Conversely, a brain in motion, deeply engaged in a challenging task, tends to stay in motion. The entire battle, then, is won or lost in the first few moments. The hardest part of any important task is applying the initial, unbalanced force required to overcome that initial state of cognitive rest. Therefore, our entire strategy for action must be overwhelmingly focused on generating that first, decisive push. All our energy should be directed at the beginning. To understand the sheer power of this initial thrust, we need only look to the heavens and consider the science of launching a rocket into space. Imagine a Saturn V rocket, the colossal machine that took humanity to the moon, standing on the launch pad. It is a tower of immense potential energy. In the first few minutes of its launch, as it strains to escape the powerful gravitational pull of the Earth, the rocket will use more fuel than it does for the entire remainder of its multi-day, half-million-mile journey to the moon and back. The mission's design is almost entirely focused on generating a colossal, overwhelming initial force to achieve escape velocity. Once the rocket breaks free from Earth's gravity, the rest of the journey becomes exponentially easier, guided by small, precise burns of its thrusters. This is the perfect model for how we must approach our most intimidating and important work. We exhaust ourselves by staring at the entire journey, the whole report to be written, the whole project to be completed. Instead, we must follow the lesson of the rocket scientists. We must stop worrying about the whole journey and focus all our energy and ingenuity on engineering the launch. If our greatest challenge is simply generating that initial thrust, if the entire battle is about overcoming that initial inertia, then we need a system designed for that singular purpose. We do not need a system for the entire journey, not at first. We need a system for the launch. We need, in short, a reliable, repeatable method for getting started. We need a pacemaker. Chapter 8. The Pacing Method, your pacemaker for the first mile. The secret of getting ahead is getting started, Mark Twain famously and correctly said. But how does one get started when the forces of inertia feel so powerful? The secret to getting started is to borrow momentum to create your own. Just as an elite marathoner uses a pacemaker, another runner who sets a target pace, to achieve a difficult speed through the early stages of a race, you can use external structures to pull you through the initial, painful period of resistance until your own natural momentum takes over. This is the practical, actionable essence of crossing the focus threshold. The iconic, definitive story of this principle took place on a cinder track in Oxford, England, on the 6th of May 1954. For decades, the world's best runners had been chasing a seemingly impossible goal, the 4-minute mile. It was considered by many to be a hard physiological limit, a barrier the human body was simply not designed to break. Then, a young medical student named Roger Bannister decided to challenge this accepted wisdom. But he knew he could not do it alone. He devised a system. On that fateful day, Bannister did not run the first part of the race at his own pace. He had two friends, Chris Brasher and Chris Chataway, who agreed to act as his pacemakers. Brasher ran the first lap at a blistering pace, with Bannister tucked in behind him, shielded from the wind. Then Chataway took over, pulling Bannister through the third lap. They were doing the hard work of setting the pace and breaking the wind, allowing Bannister to conserve his physical and mental energy for the final push. It was only on the final lap that Bannister, now running on his own, unleashed his full power, surged ahead, and broke the tape in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. He had outsourced the inertia problem. The pacemakers didn't run the whole race for him, but they made the race possible. We can apply this exact same strategy to our work by adopting the pacing method. It is a system for creating your own pacemakers. It has two simple parts. First, you need an inertia breaker. This is your first pacer, your Chris Brasher. It is an absurdly small, non-negotiable first step that is so easy to do, it's almost laughable. If your task is write a report, your inertia breaker is open the document and write one sentence. If your task is go for a run, the inertia breaker is put on your running shoes. The goal of this step is not to make progress, but simply to break the state of rest. Second, immediately after the inertia breaker, you commit to a first interval. This is your second pacer, your Chris Chataway. This is a single, non-negotiable block of timed, uninterrupted work. The classic model is the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of focus, followed by a 5-minute break. During this interval, the timer itself becomes the pacer. Your only goal is to stay with the pacer until it stops. You are not trying to finish the project. You are just trying to finish the 25-minute interval. The outcome is irrelevant. The process is everything. The pacing method will get you across the threshold. It will get you into the race, past the most difficult first mile. But in any long race, in any meaningful endeavor, there are moments of difficulty. Your rhythm breaks. An unexpected obstacle appears on the track. A powerful distraction finally gets through your defenses. The amateur gives up when this happens. The professional, however, knows exactly how to recover. Chapter 9. The Rhythm of Resilience, Recovering Your Focus. There is an old and powerful Japanese proverb that contains a world of wisdom in just 7 words. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. This simple phrase holds the final, crucial key to a life of sustained, meaningful focus. The goal is not perfection. The goal is resilience. You will get distracted. Your mind, an organ designed for scanning the horizon, will wander. The true skill of deep focus is not found in maintaining an unbreakable, superhuman streak of concentration. It is found in the speed, the grace, and the self-compassion with which you return to your object of attention after it has strayed. The master of focus is, first and foremost, a master of recovery. To understand this, let us return to the sea and imagine the life of an ancient seafaring navigator, guiding a small wooden ship across a vast, unpredictable ocean. No sailor, no matter how skilled or experienced, could keep a perfect, straight line to their destination. It was impossible. The wind, the waves, the powerful ocean currents all conspired to constantly push the ship off its intended course. The sailor's genius was not in resisting the awesome power of the ocean. That would be a futile and exhausting battle. Their skill, their art, was in constant, gentle, relentless course correction. They would notice they were off course by taking a reading from the sun or the stars, their compass. Then they would make a small, deliberate adjustment to the ship's rudder, guiding it back onto its heading. Not with anger or frustration at the wind, but with a calm acceptance of the nature of the sea. They would perform this sequence, noticing and adjusting, over and over again, dozens, perhaps hundreds of times a day. It was this rhythm of resilience, this dance of falling off course and gently returning, that allowed them to cross oceans. This is the perfect model for our own mental navigation. We can adopt a compass and rudder technique for the moments when we find our mind has been blown off course. The compass is the moment of awareness. It is the instant you realize, I am no longer thinking about my report. I am thinking about what to have for dinner. This moment of noticing is a victory, not a failure. In that moment, you do not chastise yourself. There is no room for self-flagellation. You simply and calmly say a single word to yourself, like wandered or thinking. This is you, the calm captain on the deck, simply noticing that the ship is off course. The rudder is the gentle, immediate act of guiding your attention back. You do not try to wrestle your mind back to the entire, intimidating project. You simply guide it to the smallest possible part of the task at hand. You bring your attention back to the single sentence you were writing, the single line of code, the single number in the spreadsheet. This is the small, gentle touch on the rudder that brings the great ship back onto its heading. This skill of resilient recovery is the final piece of the puzzle. It transforms the practice of focus from a brittle, all-or-nothing state into a flexible, durable, and anti-fragile practice that can withstand the unpredictable storms of life. Outro. We have traveled a great distance together. We began our journey by performing a deep and honest diagnosis of our modern condition, confronting the systemic problem of the age of fractured attention, identifying by name the three thieves of cognition, and dismantling the insidious myth of multitasking. With a clear diagnosis in hand, we shifted from the problem to the solution. We began the work of cognitive architecture, learning to treat the mind as a room we can design, creating sacred portals of ritual to enter states of focus, and committing to the profound sanctity of the single task. Finally, we brought this new philosophy into the real world of action. We understood the fundamental physics of action that governs procrastination. We learned to use the pacing method as our reliable system for overcoming inertia and getting started. And we cultivated the rhythm of resilience, ensuring we have a method not just for starting, but for continuing, day after day. These are not 9 separate lessons to be remembered. They are a single cohesive system for achieving cognitive sovereignty in the 21st century. It is a path that leads from awareness to architecture, and from architecture to deliberate, meaningful action. It is a complete blueprint for reclaiming your mind. At the beginning of our journey, I made a pact with you. I promised to give you the keys to a life of profound concentration. The person who started this audiobook may have felt scattered, frustrated, and like a victim of their own wandering mind. The person listening to these words now possesses the full blueprint. You understand the enemy, you have designed the sanctuary, and you hold the proven tools for consistent action and graceful recovery. Now the final step is to put the theory into practice. Your prestige challenge is this. For the next 7 days, do not focus on outcomes, page counts, or finished products. Focus only on the process. Once this week, perform a clear-eyed attention audit. Identify your primary thief of cognition, the one that steals most of your time, and write it down. Each day, before you begin your most important work, perform your portal ritual. Make it physical. Make it consistent. Each day, use the pacing method to complete just one single 25-minute interval of uninterrupted single-task work. When, not if, your mind wanders, practice the compass and rudder technique once, without judgment, and continue. That is the entire challenge. The goal is not to move mountains in a week. The goal is to prove to yourself, through concrete action, that you are the architect. You are the captain. You are the smith. You are in control. If this intellectual journey has provided you with value and a new lens through which to see your own potential, subscribe to Prestige Mind Collections. We are dedicated to exploring the world's most powerful ideas together. Please like this audiobook and subscribe to the Prestige Mind Collections channel for more inspirational, relatable content.